Welcome to Super Cyber Friday. We are going to talk about risk reduction, but first, I need some good advice about risk reduction. Guy, give me some good advice on reducing risk.
Reducing risk, so don't try to boil the ocean and focus on the things that matter most.
All right, now I'm going to throw this to you, Peter. Give me the complete opposite. Give me some bad advice on risk reduction.
Oh, you don't have to worry about it. You can just offload it to insurance anyway.
That is bad advice. One up him. Guy, give me some worse advice on risk reduction.
Worst, believe that you can find the next 0 day and tackle it before it happens.
Yeah, that's pretty bad advice. Even worse than what he said. Let's start.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
Welcome, everybody, to Super Cyber Friday. Today's topic is hacking risk reduction, an hour of critical thinking about actions we should take to lower risk. And I'm sure there are plenty, but maybe I'm wrong on that. Our guests today are the gentleman you just saw, Peter Liebert, who is the CISO of LifeOmic, and also Guy Bejarano, who is the CEO over at SafeBreach. And huge thanks to SafeBreach, they're our sponsor today. They actually can help you simulate an actual breach environment to get yourself better prepared for that and, well, reduce your risk of attacks. 7 different ways you can participate. You see the chat room. Many of you are well aware of that. You can see it's lighting up already. Also, submit your worst risk reduction technique. I'm sure you've got plenty of bad ones. But on the flip side, we want your tips on how to improve the risk reduction situation. But you don't need to give us a grandiose answer. You can just say, hey, here's a 10% tip on dealing with that. You can vote in our polls. You'll see those. Will go up in a while. And take advantage of Bring Us On at any time by just typing Bring Me On. And Andrew or Aaron, our two producers working behind the scenes, will try to get you on as quickly as possible. Ask a question anytime. You see there's a question option at the bottom, and vote for your favorite question as those questions come in as well. All right. Today's schedule, good advice, bad advice, worse advice. You just saw it. Worst reduction techniques and how to make it 10% better. Just make sure you label it with bad idea or 10%. We will play the game, The Public Interest. That's a good game that our guests and you will play along with. Also, we'll go live, vote for the worst risk reduction techniques. And we haven't played this in a few weeks. We will play I Object, and our winner from the best bad idea last week, Brian Colt, will be joining us for that game. We'll also play the Department of Yes, and our poll lot will go live with how do we make it 10% better. And our 2 worst idea contenders will face off to determine who has the best bad idea. We'll have our last question and final advice, and then we will do our meetup, which is a ton of fun. Stick around for that. There you get a chance to have FaceTime with your fellow cybersecurity colleagues. I just also want to mention that our next show will be in actually 2 weeks, not 3 weeks. It's actually 3 weeks from now. It'll be April 29th. I have that 2 incorrect. Imagine that 2 is a 3. It'll be Hacking the SOC. The link to register for that is at the bottom of the screen. You can click on that at any time, and it will not take you out of this Super Cyber Friday event. But remember, if you register by 5 p.m. by April 26th, you're automatically entered in to win a CISO Series jacket. So please click on that link at any time to register for the event. All right. With that said, I can stop this insane color thing going off. All right, Peter, Guy, thank you for staying still as I get through all of that. Let me ask the obvious question, which I was asking beforehand, and I was a little off base. Guy, I was saying, what are the areas we need to explore when looking to reduce risk? And I said, don't you have to look at pretty much everything? And you say, well, not really. What do you have to do?
Yeah, well, if you want to be efficient, then trying to tackle everything would be actually, I think, a failure in terms of strategy.
It would be exhausting.
Our life is exhausting, so I wouldn't care about that. But more, can you be successful? And so I would focus on the things that move the needle the most for the business, understand what creates the biggest impact, and start there. And by the way, it's not always the negative impact. Sometimes you have to find what will allow the business to take more risk. And if you can build that, infrastructure to allow the business to move faster and take more risk, then
what would be? Give me an example of that.
If you enable, the right platform to move to the cloud in a secure manner, and you through that excel the agility of the organization, then it's a great thing.
All right, Peter, have there been common areas that you have seen that are great areas to look at for reducing risk, or is it always a complete different story, whatever company you're with?
There are some common threads. I mean, especially if you look at individual workers, securing their access to production environments, things along those lines. I think that's certainly an area that I would focus on. But going back to Guy's point, um, you need to sit down and use a framework really and start
Hmm.
mapping it out and taking a look across the board. I mean, MITRE ATT&CK framework is great for taking a look for complex large environments. If you have a lot of time, it's a pretty big framework. But
Hmm.
if you're focused on like production or like you're a web focused company, look like something simple like Stride or a WASP Top 10 and things like that, and that will really help you with your risk modeling.
And and it's just, one of the things we've talked about on our podcast as well is just, if you don't know where to start with some kind of framework, or looking at the CIS controls as well,
Hmm.
as that will help you sort of initially wrap your mind around it. But you also obviously have to look at your specific business, correct, Guy?
Absolutely. If you understand, what moves the needle for the business, then you can aim for the right targets. I always compare. I was a CISO before being a CEO, and I
Hmm.
always compared the great security with the braking system for a Formula One car.
Yes.
It enables you to move faster without the concern of hitting the wall, and that's exactly what we need to drive towards.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good analogy. I mean, we've heard this like brakes on a race car concept, but when you specifically look at Formula One, in that they are the fastest, land machines that can actually turn corners, as opposed to the ones that just go straight. Um, that s- Success is twofold. It's building an insane amount of power and building phenomenal brakes. It is because you're actually, like what you were saying, you do want to take on more risk by being able to go faster, but you want better brakes when you're doing that.
I would say
Absolutely.
there's a third component there too, and that's
Hmm.
building the right team around it. So, and Guy also alluded to this. Don't go in alone on this. Look at your
Right.
business as a whole, right? Which means you can't just take it from a security ivory tower approach. Talk to your business units, get them involved, right? What makes a business actually successful?
Hmm.
How are you guys making your lunch money, right? How do you build your security to help enable that? And then the last piece is your leadership aware of what you're doing? Are they signing off on the risk? Are you briefing it to them? Like, what's their strategy for getting the right information, up and then being able to make decisions on it, right? So that's a key component.
Yeah, and by the way, and that goes back to the Formula One analogy, because it's always about the team winning. It
Hmm.
isn't just about the driver winning,
Right.
for that
Absolutely.
matter. Anyways, get your questions in. If you have any questions about risk reduction, I gotta imagine plenty of you do have questions about this. Please get them in. Um, Let me start with you, Peter, on this. When you have, dealt with risk reduction, which is an ongoing issue, I know,
Hmm.
what have been some surprises over the years that you've seen, like, whoa, I didn't even realize that's an area we could deal with, and let's deal with it?
Well, so I think one of the key surprises is just the commonality of,
Hmm.
and I've worked for the state, I've worked for private companies, Fortune 500s, uh, and man, like patching, right? I mean, it's just some basics that, from a risk reduction standpoint, are just huge. And but it's tough to do. It's
Hmm.
amazingly difficult for some organizations to just do simply update, right? But yeah, I think that's one area.
What about you, Guy? And you've been a CISO and you've worked with a lot of companies. What have been some of the biggest surprises in the effort to reduce risk?
So one of the things that still really surprises me is that I see a lot of organizations that are trying to go first of all to the most sophisticated or hardest challenge and not really solving the basis. If you think
Hmm.
about it, frameworks are great. We have in our platform we can execute the MITRE framework with all the SAP techniques and everything around it. And you see that people are, going after the TTPs, the behavioral stuff at the beginning. And I will say, no, this is when you have crawl, walk, run. This is actually fly.
Hmm.
Start with basic IOC. Start with blocking the URL. Start with the wrappers of malicious payloads. Start with them, and then move towards a more sophisticated threat. And I see still a lot of organizations that are trying to tackle first thing, the challenging part. And I think that's it still surprises me that people don't try to leverage the commonality in the market. As Peter said, a lot of these methods and techniques are being reused, and there's a lot of knowledge around them, and there's still people are not using them in order to improve their defenses.
So this is a super common thing that we have echoed umpteen times on our shows. Deal with the basics first. And the great thing about the CIS controls is they kind of go in order of how you should be dealing with them. Mm-hmm. But, and I'll just throw this out here. This may not a red herring, but just diverting us just for a hair here. Security people are human. They like kind of cool new shiny objects. We like to know about, and there are vendors out there that are doing the cool new thing, and all of a sudden they're paying attention to that, and maybe we should pay attention to that. It's like, is there a way to kind of, Peter, like, yes, like go to Black Hat, learn about the crazy latest threats, but and this was a quote that I saw on Reddit. The thing you were worried about before Black Hat is the same thing you should be worried about after Black Hat. Yes, Peter.
I agree with that. I mean, yeah. But the fact of the matter is, it's like people love to go after that shiny object, mm-hmm. and hey, I wanna stop APTs from getting in. That's one of my focuses. And when you talk with sales folks, they'll be like, oh yeah, we're great at stopping that top level threat. Going back to what Guy was saying, it's like, well, that's great. You can get an alarm system for your house, like with cameras and everything else, but you should probably invest in some door locks first, right? And yes. Focus on that there, and then go to the top tier and try to block the really tough guys.
And I'm just going to ask you a specific question about your product, Guy, Safe Breach. And I just want to remind people we are 8 minutes away from the poll going up for the best bad ideas. Make sure you get those in. And here I'll did I not have that here? No, I didn't. Here.
Send them in. We need your bad ideas.
Yes, we do. We want your bad ideas. And also vote. Make sure you register for the April 29th event. So specifically Safe Breach, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, you're essentially trying to simulate breach behavior in an effort to enlighten people to issues with their environment. Yes? Am I correct in that, Guy?
So yeah, basically is taking the atomic parts of the attack, the logical actions that an attacker is using, and just execute them.
Right. And so they can see where they are extremely vulnerable and what could cause the most damage, right?
Yeah, it's actually, I really like, always the positive angle of things. It gives a lot of, it's powerful to see where you can stop the attack. So, yes. It's your playground. And when you flash in the attack, you see where you can choke it and, where you have the upper end, and you should invest in those areas to be more successful.
Very, very good point. And, and this goes back to the CIS controls. Like this is, when you have a tool like this, and we talked to other companies that do this as well, it's like having a custom CIS control guideline, because you're essentially saying, well, yeah, I know I need to do these basics, right, Peter, which you do, but then like there's something unique to my environment that I didn't catch and I need to deal with this. And to literally have an instruction playbook to your needs is extraordinarily helpful, because then you just got to, if you don't have it, you're just sitting there making guessing games, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or even educated guessing games.
Well, I mean, it's all paper-based at first. Right. And one of the most crucial parts about Safe Breach, and I've actually used their product in the past, is you get it off the paper. You actually see like your actual environment. I mean, and Guy kind of down talked it. Like there's over like 14,000 attacks that they run across in this your actual environment using your actual security gear. And they do it in a safe way. And you see these things streaming across, and yeah, a whole bunch hopefully will be blocked. But the amount of information you get, like for your gaps, is just unbelievable. Like, I mean, I've seen stuff like, oh my God, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the most advanced EPP platform there is. We forgot to turn on the block policy for that segmented area. Oops, and the only
it literally can be something that stupid and simple.
Oh my God! And
it's usually that
is actually stressing.
That's a thing.
Stressing that environment with this type of BAS system. It's unbelievable.
It's never something complicated. It's usually something
I would say
incredibly
never.
simple.
No,
it's usually that thing.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
So
But,
it's
no,
usually
unbelievable.
something just wasn't turned on or something wasn't turned off, right?
Mhm.
So if you do a survey, for example, how many people are using next gen firewall today? How many
Everyone.
people are using SSL termination?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's building feature that really helps
Hmm.
you to understand the packets and look at everything. And people are blind to things not because they don't have the technology, but because they're not using it properly
Hmm.
Mhm.
or to the extent of what's the possibilities. And I totally agree with Peter. This is I have this. Maybe I'll do it next decade. Come with a huge
Mhm.
billboard that says "Stop buying new shiny tools. Just start using what you have."
Seriously,
Yeah, we've talked this a lot about this on
that's
our
a
show.
big deal. Yeah.
We had one guest on that went through every tool that they had, created a spreadsheet and all the features that the tools had, and just saw where there was constant, repeats, the like crossover that the two tools, 3, 4, 5 tools were doing the exact same thing, and he slowly started getting rid of stuff in his environment as a result.
I see a lot of people here comment on cyber insurance. I totally agree with that,
Yeah.
and I just learned that the insurers now just improve their qualification process, and now they're asking if you have an EDR, which is amazing, but it doesn't mean anything. Are you deployed it, and what's the efficiency level? So, and that's why cyber insurance is not really effective. You cannot really know what's the likelihood of someone to be breached just based on a questionnaire.
Here's an interesting question from Eli Migdal, who is also based in Tel Aviv. From your experience, from the total cyber risk, how much percentage can a CISO actually mitigate and take responsibility for? And I know we've had this argument of like, risk is the business, but they're taking responsibility to help manage. I'm going to qualify that. For example, he says, once the cyber risk is quantified, how much from this number can a CISO take maximum responsibility for it? Is 80%, 90%? Like, say, they say, all right, we want to reduce, I'm making something up. The business says, okay, we have this issue. We want to reduce the risk X percentage. Is this become fully the CISO's responsibility? Is it a shared responsibility with the business department? How does this work? Peter, you keep nodding your head too as well.
Yeah. No, this is a great question. I mean, so first I would just make one slight tweak to the language. I would say, the primary job of the CISO is to identify the risks and help
Right.
develop strategies on how to mitigate those risks. There's always going to be residual risk, but it's not really the CISO's role to accept the risk. That's going to be
Right.
the
And that's what I
owner
was
of the
saying.
company.
We all know that, yeah.
Yeah, and the board, right? So, but in terms of percentage, oh man, that's like a moving target. I would say that you'd be surprised with the amount of risk that you can actually mitigate, given a good program. There's always going to be that residual, black swan type of scenarios.
Mhm.
How am I going to stop an earthquake? How am I going to stop, a true APT actor from coming in if they're really determined? So there's always going to be percentage. I don't want to quantify it per se, but if I had to throw a dart on the dartboard, I would say like 80, 85%. You can probably
So
cover.
Eli was in the right target. What would you add to this? And I got a quick question from Jonathan, and then we're going to jump to our next game. Go ahead.
So,
Got it.
Eli, thanks for the question, by the way, and Shabbat Shalom. I totally agree with Peter. I think the CISO's role, and that's how I saw my position when I was a CISO, is actually 100% to bring the understanding and the knowledge to the board, to the executives, so they can make a decision. Eventually, it's a business decision. So you need to be professional enough to articulate that, to build the common language, and to be able to measure. Now, I would love, if an organization thinks in a form of how to reduce risk and tie that to a financial result. This is great. I think the question that CISOs are starting to, being asked on the boardroom is, if I increase your budget by 10%, by how much can you reduce our risk? Not a lot of CISOs can, give an exact answer. And that's, by the way, part of, my mission, as I say, to help them to give, to be able to measure it in an empirical way and to give that answer eventually.
All right. I think we should get the bad idea poll up in just a few seconds. Actually, we're going to get it up. And actually, we're going to just jump into our next game right now.
It's time to play a brand new game.
All right, I have to apologize. It's not a brand new game because we've actually already played it like 3 times already. So this is like the 4th time we've played it. But the problem is we haven't created the audio bumper for this. But this has been just a fun game. We've played a few times. So we want to play it again with everybody. It's called The Public Interest. It's super simple. You too can play along. The audience can play along too as well. So we want you to play along, audience, as well. All right. So it's as simple as this. You just got to pick which one's greater. So what has the most average monthly search queries? Is it risk reduction or managing risk? What do you gentlemen think? Guy, Peter?
I think B, managing.
B,
risk.
I'm going to say A. I think it's risk reduction.
You're going with the risk reduction. Guy is going with managing risk. Their audience, who is I think a few seconds behind us, they will see it in a second. It is risk reduction. Way to go. Peter wins that one. 1 for Peter, 0 for Guy right now. All right, we go to the next one. Which gets the most average monthly search queries? Is it security breach or disaster recovery?
I think
What do you
security
think?
breach. Security breach.
Just to be different, I'll go with disaster recovery.
Oh, do you think it's security breach or do you think it's disaster recovery? What do you think? I don't even remember
I
myself.
just want to give you a different answer.
Okay. All right. The correct answer. Disaster recovery.
Wow.
Guy wins.
Yeah, it worked.
He even goes, okay, we're split here. 1-1. Very good. We got 2 more questions coming up. All right. Which one's most most average monthly search queries? Is it risk averse or a risk taker?
Risk taker.
I think risk averse. Look at that. Wow.
Risk averse. Are you splitting again?
Yeah.
All right. And guess what? Peter takes it this time. Good job. All right, our last one, and this one I found humorous. Which is better, a stupid mistake or a dumb mistake in terms of more popular searches?
Oh my God.
That's a stupid mistake.
Stupid mistake. You are both correct. Very good. Peter, though, edges it out. I think a 3-2 on that one. Excellent job, both of you gentlemen. Kudos. Did anyone get all 4 right? Hopefully somebody got all 4 right. Lots of voting there as well. All right. We have our poll up. Please vote in the poll. That is the best bad idea poll. And in about 8 minutes, we will play the Department of Yes. So please, you got 8 minutes. Do your vote. Vote for the bad idea you think is worse, and we'll play that game right now. All right. There were some questions that came in that I really liked. So here we go. So this is a question came from Jonathan Waldrop, who is with Insight Global. How do you get started developing prioritization if your executive leadership thinks everything is critical? And I know I've heard this line before. They don't even think about it. They just go, everything is critical. And and then on the opposite side, I've heard of this because I was talking to a guy, Nick Ryan, who is with Baker Tilly, but this was at a previous company. They asked, what is the longest we can go down, without and operate without an issue? And they said they believe 48 hours they could be down, which that seems just astonishing to me. Wow. And they actually had an incident where they went down and they couldn't be down for 2 hours. So it's like there's 2 issues here. People who are too lackadaisical about, we can handle it if that happens, to everything's a problem. How do you deal with those 2 extremes? I'll start with you, Peter.
So that's a great question. I think we talked a little bit about it before. Go talk to the other stakeholder groups, right? So what is your company selling? How are you making your money? If you're
and do you do that?
Service,
and do you do that before you start at the top? Because you should come with some ammunition.
Oh yeah.
Yes?
Oh, you do not want to go to the CEO and be like, so what do we do here?
Yeah. Okay.
Talking to your marketing and sales folks, right? What are they selling? Talk to your legal. What are our SLAs and contracts? Go talk to your CFO. Where are we making our money? How are we making our money? And then work backwards from there. Because if you're not making money, you're not a company that's going to do well. So, right. And the stuff that's surrounding that will be the most critical, typically. Not always, but typically. And then you can start looking at, all right, well, we're selling all this. What type of data is it? Is there legal concerns, data privacy concerns, and start kind of molding your landscape with that to build out that contextual security environment.
All right. What would you add to that, Guy? And Guy, can you answer the opposite side, the people who think, oh, we can handle it. Whatever happens, we can handle it, kind of a thing?
Yeah, that's great. People that thinks that they can handle it. First of all, totally agree with Peter. Do your homework before you go up. You need to establish a common language. So I'll give through an example. Okay, one of my customers, a CISO at a large airliner, and well, I asked him first thing like, what are the top three risks you're looking at and you're trying to avoid? And obviously, the first one is safety of the airplanes. So if anything can happen through a cyber attack, that will jeopardize that. But put that aside. I was, a bit surprised to hear what was the second one. And the second one was our booking system. If that will be down, and actually got a number of X amount of hours, they said, if it's more than that, game over. It's not about stealing credit cards, not about, PII, nothing like that. But if the booking system will be down, so, okay, now he got his priorities in order, and he can build everything around it. Different discussion, very easy discussion, goes both ways, by the way, David, to your question. If someone will come and say, it's super critical to handle something that is not related to that, then it's not, the company doesn't care about that.
And you both bring up a really good point in that even if it is extreme, like if we're down for 2 hours, the business is shut down, kind of a thing. Like even if it's that extreme, at least you know what you're dealing with, right? And you can build a program around something you're dealing with. When you don't know this information, then who knows?
Oh yeah. Well, it's also like, hey, what order do you bring stuff back up in, right? If you don't understand what's critical, there's good luck trying to reestablish your entire environment if there's catastrophe.
Guy?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, David, in a sense that people think of risk as something, very deterministic and we need to prevent it. There are a lot of things, beside prevention that you need to practice. And reducing risk is actually being able to detect fast and to recover fast, not only preventing, because you cannot prevent everything. That will never happen.
Right. And again, it's also about the business. I mean, you look at like financial institutions and markets, they can't be down like for seconds. Like, seconds actually causes major damage to them, and we think about, your average worker, if they're down for a few minutes or, a half hour, they go out for lunch. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not the end of the world. By any stretch, like it's barely a blip on the radar, but to other companies, this can be catastrophic. So it's all understanding, and this goes back to the questions. And let's get to the actual simulation, because just knowing it and setting it up is one thing, but I wouldn't say it's only 50% of the equation, right, Peter?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, knowing is half the battle, G.I. Joe, right? But you have to test it, and you have to ensure what you're putting together is actually, and everyone knows what they're doing, right?
And how often are you testing? And there's got to be degrees of testing. Like certain things can be tested, I guess, once a year. Some things have to be tested every week. I don't know. I mean, like what is that kind of environment that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, so when you're talking DR, disaster recovery, you're talking large, events, you want to test it at least a year, like once a year, ideally. Okay. More frequently if you can. But if you're talking and there's a lot of other stuff you can test that falls below that, and that's where you can test more frequently. I mean, don't wait for an incident to test this stuff. You want to go through and start looking at the different plans, what's working, how you prosecute, investigations and remediate, pretty frequently. Keep your folks sharp and make sure that what you have written down is actually something that works.
I just realized I forgot to play our I Object game, and we're going to get, what we're going to do? We're going to play it later. We're going to play the I Object game later because it just dawned on me. We never played it. So my apologies to Brian Colt, but we are going to get to that. I normally do it at the 20-minute mark, but I played the other game at the 20-minute mark, and now we're doing this. So, and our producer saying it slipped my mind as well. So don't worry. We're going to get to that game. We're just going to play it a little bit later. Please vote for your best bad ideas. In fact, what we'll do is let's get the I Object game in now. Can we get let's invite Brian Cole, because I want more votes coming in for our bad ideas, and we'll play the Department of Yes later. But let's get I Object going now. And in fact, with that being said, everyone, here it is, and listen to the rules.
Who will be holding the mic at the end of I Object? Here are the rules. The game lasts 1 minute, but the clock stops when a competitor says, I object. Time doesn't resume until the judge says sustained or overruled. At any moment, any competitor can object. Don't be polite, you want to win. So find a reason to object. The one who's speaking on the microphone at the end of the minute will be the winner.
All right, those are the rules for I Object. We have to play them because sometimes they get a little too complicated for everyone. But everyone understands the topic will be risk reduction. Guy will begin. The two of you can object at any time, and whoever is speaking, the other two can object any time. And I can't stress this enough. Find a reason to object at all times. And Andrew will be keeping the time, and the one holding the mic at the end will win. All right, is everybody ready? Guy, make your argument now, starting with risk reduction.
So I'll start by saying, something that Peter obviously cannot object to because it's his idea. And I would start by interviewing all the business stakeholders in my company to really understand what are the KPIs, what, moves the needle for them. And based on that, to start to build a framework around the areas that security can impact, positive or negative.
I object.
What's your objection?
That's a good thing to start with, but you also really need to understand what you're currently doing. You're flying the airplane.
Sustain. Keep going.
While it's actually, still being built, right? So what is your current landscape? Before you go out and start trying to identify new risks, identify what you're doing to mitigate your current existing environment and what you can build off of that, right? So using things like BAS, which you can't object to, safe breach, put them in there and take a look at your gaps and see what's out there, and then to start identifying technologies that can start, from the ground up.
I object.
Hold away. What's your objection, Guy?
So start identifying technologies is not the first thing you want to do. You want to understand the gaps
Sustain.
in current
Go.
technologies and actually make them more efficient before you go and buy new stuff. And through that, to really build on the process of where, you need to put your effort and resources and wait with buying new technology.
Guy wins. Brian, you just agreed with everything. What happened there?
They had very good points, and I had stage fright.
It's all right. We appreciate you coming by, and thank you for your awesome bad idea from last week. Thank you very much, Brian Colt, and congrats to Guy for winning I Object. And by the way, that is a technique that we haven't seen before, where the two people had worked together and know what they agreed to. So use that as a technique. That is, by the way, very smart.
Find a way to wedge in
There
there.
you go. Very wise. Use what they already know against them. Mm-hmm. Kudos to both of you on that. All right. We are going to, let's go with one more question, and then we'll go to our next game on that. Here, Lisa, we got a lot of questions came in from the audience as well. All right, I'm going to go with this from Ian Pointer. This is an interesting question because, we always talk about look at where the money's coming from, but not all organizations, their biggest critical asset is money. You look at nonprofits, you look at, hospitals, yes, money, but hospitals got a lot of other things that are not money focused. So Ian asks this, how should an organization that does not focus on money determine risk levels? I'm thinking of nonprofits, he says, who clearly do care about money, but don't think that they care for that matter. I'll start with you, Guy, on this one.
So there's a great CISO that you guys know, Yaron Levy.
Sure.
Which I work with for many years, and he always says, he used to be the CISO Blue Cross Blue Shield of KC, and he always said, when I walk in the street, every other person I meet is my customer, and I know I'm protecting their data, and eventually, in a way, it's not just their privacy, but it's medical data, so it goes way beyond that. I think it's a great motivation when it's not only financial information, because financial information can be, you can bring an idea to the management and say, we might have a $20 million risk here, but you're asking for a $30 million budget, so it's not worth it. When you talk about if it's, people's life, if it's, things around, obviously, national security, and I spent 14 years in service, so it's different level of discussion. It's great for the CISO because you can leverage that way more than just financial impact.
Yeah.
What would you add to that? That's a great answer, what Yaron said.
Yeah, I would say just going back to the government example, right? I mean, look,
Hmm.
you don't have to be necessarily selling something from the traditional sense. You could be either providing a thing, like an object, security as a service, etc., or a service, right? A capability. And so, from a government perspective, all those different departments and agencies and everything else are all providing something to individuals. Critical in many cases, right? It could be healthcare, it could be security, it could be anything. So take a look at what you're providing. You're always giving something to the customer out there, right?
Hmm.
Whether they realize it or not. And what is that? And then focus on that versus the dollars.
All right. We are ready to play, I think, our next game at this point. And hold on, where's my, here we go.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right. We are ready to play this. And I'm gonna slightly go off. I'm going for one that was voted slightly lower because some of the ones who are voted up highly we've heard multiple times in the show. And I want to mix this up a little bit. So remember, the point of this game is to find the reason why you want to do this incredibly stupid idea. And so here we go. And I'm throwing this one to you first, Peter, since you've seen the show. Actually, I think both of you have seen the show, so you know how this game works. All right. And by the way, if this is you, please speak up. We want to know who is you because we're going to have you come on screen a little while. Teach your executives to play I Object, the game you just played, and have them determine what risks to deal with based on who wins the game. Why is this a good idea you want to do?
Wow. Okay. Actually, it's not terrible. First off, I think it's good because it will get them involved. Gamification. They start thinking, hey, let's take a look at risk. Let's put them in a competitive environment. I bet they're all probably alphas, and allow them to kind of go head to head and start coming up with ideas and thinking about risk.
Hooray! They're talking about it. That's a win.
Mm-hmm.
Guy, why do you want to do this?
Can you repeat the words?
Teach your executives to play I Object and have them determine what risk to deal with based on who wins the game.
What risk to
deal with, depending on who wins the game so the version we just played right now. Whoever wins, that's what you deal with.
Well, I think that first of all, let your executive go at each other. It's always a good idea. Doesn't matter what the game is about, and some experience. I believe that every executive should serve in security for a bit to get some experience around.
I like that.
I agree. All excellent answers all the way around. I'm going to give you kudos to all of them. All right. And I'm going to also, who was that one? Who was the first one? Craig Herder was one. Craig, make sure you're ready with your audio and your camera as well. All right. Now, Peter, I don't know. This one's far tougher. I thought that first one was kind of easy. So this one's way easier. Air gap everything. No internet connectivity allowed. That will reduce a lot of risk. Yes?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean, it worked for the Iranians, right? With Stuxnet. No, I would say, all right, silver lining. I'll cut down on your internet bills.
Sir, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. All right. Guy, you want to answer this one? Air gap everything, no internet connectivity allowed?
It will improve your mind control capabilities on how to post security. Yeah, from your thinking about. No.
I'm giving this one to Peter. Peter wins this one. Sorry. That's for you, Peter.
Woohoo!
We've got a winner.
All right. Peter takes away with it. Who is the second one? Air gap is Benjamin, last name Benjamin. Are you there? What time is it now? We're gonna do one more question. We're gonna bring you on to go head to head. So make sure Benjamin is not on. Can we get a second for Benjamin to air gap everything? Who will hopefully get a second on. All right. I have more questions for you. They're coming in. They're coming in fast and furious. Here's a good one. What is the bigger problem? This again from Eli Migdal, who again, he is, it's the middle of Shabbat, but yet he's celebrating it with us. So everyone make sure you light 2 candles as we're playing along. What is the bigger problem? Boards do not understand the actual impact of cyber risk, or boards do not understand the risk reduction process that is done by the CISOs. And do both problems need to be dealt with? I will start with you, Guy.
So first of all, I think I see still too many CISOs don't understand the risk reduction process, and then it's hard for them to articulate that to the board. So I wouldn't put it on the board. I put it on the CISO. When CISOs are still presenting, vulnerabilities and how many phishing emails went through, it doesn't help the board to be educated about risk. And I think that actually boards. So today I'm dealing with the board as a CEO, but I think that boards that I've met really understand the business, and if you'll be more like a CFO, bring KPIs, numbers, predictability, then boards will definitely understand security.
Yeah, you're nodding your head on this one, Peter.
Spot on. That was literally going to be my answer. It's
all
not
right.
the
Well, then we
board's
don't need to
problem.
hear anything more from you.
That's the
Let's go to
CISO's
Phil Wolf,
problem.
though. He's got a good question here. I really like this one, and I'm going to throw this one again to you, Guy. Are risk reduction approaches transferable to other strategic initiatives like merger and acquisition, due diligence, or choosing new markets?
I love this question. Actually, when I did my first degree, I studied economics, and I brought an economic framework to explain security. So I think there's definitely different worlds aligned there. And how do you deal with the shortage problem of economics to explain security in a fact that, for example, you cannot solve everything. So how do you maximize your outcome? And there's a way to, definitely, I agree, there's a cohesive way to look at different worlds and to apply security on other worlds and vice versa.
Peter, do you agree? And have you actually ever done it?
Done what? M&A?
Essentially transferring the risk reduction techniques to other strategic initiatives like M&A, due diligence,
for sure.
or choosing new markets.
Yeah, M&A in particular is one I was going to mention. You'd be crazy not to. You have to consider, especially with an M&A, either they're buying you or you're buying them. Their risk posture is going to be folded under you.
But it also can be used in the negotiation process, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, 100%. And actually, your due diligence round should absolutely include a whole risk section for security, which the CISO should lead. They should go through and apply a similar framework that the company has, because the company, the one that's doing the acquisition, should be looking at the one they're buying with the same risk lens that they're utilizing for their interior, because that's, from contextual standpoint, that makes sense from their business, right? So how is that impacting my risk? That's what you need to really look at.
And I would assume also, and this probably is what's different with M&A, is a huge risk is going to be, how the heck are we going to integrate with these guys?
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure there's just so much you can see that, there's probably going to be a lot you won't know until it actually happens. Yes?
Yes. And at the very least, it is one of the most important things to bring up as they're considering pulling the trigger on the M&A. Hey, they might have a great business line, they might have a ton of customers, but if we incorporate them within our environment, here's all the risk from a data perspective, et cetera, that we're incorporating with that. And that's going to have to be bought off. They have to value that and understand the impacts of when that occurs.
All right. Quick answer to this one, Guy, as we bring on both Ian and Craig as well. So quick answer as we bring them on.
Yeah. So think about, the CISO's role or the security team role in an M&A is usually they're brought in late to the party and need to clean up after everyone, right? So there's a way actually to turn that around, and if you'll be able to help with the negotiation phase and show, that the gaps at the company that is about to be acquired are such that it can actually reduce the price, you're all of a sudden bringing, some business value. So I think CISOs can, take that role instead of just waiting for everything to be done and then try to clean up after, the mess.
All right. We have Ian and Craig Herter here on. Ian is playing the part of Benjamin, who had the bad idea of air gap everything. I'm going to say this right now, Craig. You've got an uphill battle here, because I don't know how you beat air gap, because air gap's pretty bad. But the idea here is the two of you are going to go at each other's throats as to why your idea is far worse than the other person's. I will start with you, Craig. Go ahead. Why is your idea worse?
So I agree, it's an uphill battle, but the actual battle in the boardroom is going to be a downhill battle. It's going to be a battle to the bottom. It's going to be which executive can win as opposed to which risk needs to be addressed. So what you're going to deal with is you're going to deal with executives bickering and fighting back and forth over who can object the most and who can win and have the mic at the end of a minute. And no one is actually going to think about the risks that they should be dealing with. And you're going to end up with no risk being addressed at all and no risk ranking being appropriated across the business.
A great argument. But again, I fear you're fighting air gap. All right, Ian, this is a cakewalk for you, I think. Go ahead.
I could probably still screw it up. I mean, I took this on for Benjamin because I'm a big believer in burying everything in a Faraday cage. And I think, the air gap is 75% of a Faraday cage. So I have to say it's perfect, because if we air gap everything, we stuff everything where you can't touch it and keep everyone away from it, then our only risk is that we forget to leave the security guard in place or forget to, wire the electric fence. I mean, that's a pretty low risk. I think I could get really, really good cyber insurance too, because the insurance company are going to be thrilled that nothing is touchable from the internet at all, ever. I mean, that's perfect.
Yeah, well, he's reduced a lot of risk here. All right, I'm throwing this to you, Guy, and I'm sorry, Peter. Who truly has the worst idea here?
Well, I should go with the audience here. Adas just said he just described the board meeting, and she's totally
yeah, I know.
Totally right.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, I don't think we need the I object game in here at all.
So, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Peter?
Yeah, I think the air gap.
Yeah.
It's God. I mean, you can accidentally do it if you overstick your boxes or go, and
all bow down to the air gap.
I know,
Yes.
right? And,
Although it was you, I think, Peter, who mentioned Stuxnet. So don't get too cocky with your air
even
gap.
if you air gap it, right? Yeah, don't.
Guys,
don't
there's
call
no
it a day.
such thing as air gap.
It's
There you
true.
go.
There's always a way to
plus-
bridge somehow.
There's
I
always,
didn't say that.
like Jurassic Park,
Life will find a way.
Exactly.
life will
Life
find
will
its way.
find a way. I mean,
All
I
right.
wanted to win, so I didn't mention that.
Good point, Ian. You do want to win. Ian, Craig, thank you very much. Both excellent answers to both of you. And I'm going to give a huge kudos to Craig as well, because that was not an easy one to fight right there.
He fought well.
He fought extremely, extremely well. All right, what do we got a little bit of time. Oh, if we have not gotten our get our poll for 10% better up, please get that up. Hopefully we got a good number of those, and we've got about a little over 12 minutes left in today's thing. And let me see, are there any questions I wanted to hit? I'm going to actually go to one of my questions here. This speaks, I think, more specifically to your product, Guy, and that is, how does security validation and proactive security translate into the actual quantifying and reducing risk?
So, if you think about it, to be able to quantify risk, you need to have a starting point. Companies today try to apply FAIR and other, risk frameworks, and I think the biggest challenge they have is, where do we start? What's the likelihood of something to happen? Product like SafeReach really show you, not tell you, show you for real what's the likelihood of something to happen based on your existing control, existing configuration. So being able to execute attacks, I call it some form of visit into the future and see what will happen if someone will try to do that exact thing. Use mimikatz on your endpoints, or try to exfiltrate information, or try to move laterally in your environment, and then you can, through that, understand what's the likelihood that I'll be hit by X. It can be an APT29, can be ransomware, whatever it is, and I can apply that into my business. So if you're a manufacturer, for example, we will give you what's the likelihood that your production environment will be down, and what's the cost for that, for each hour that's down. So that's how you apply breach and attack simulation to quantifying risk.
I'm going to you, Peter. What are the best ways you've shown? And in fact, I just asked this question on Twitter and it kind of blew up. And I was asking the question, like, how do you know your cybersecurity program is actually improving? So what is it you show to the board, to the C-suite, whatever, to say, okay, we had the discussions, we needed to reduce the risk. This is what we did. This is what we're seeing in terms of risk reduction. Like, what is it you present to them to show that something's been done?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of different ways you can approach that. I think one critical way of doing it is identifying KPIs, key performance indicators, and actually make sure you field those with the board beforehand so they know what's coming and they kind of agree to it as well, right? Tie those around security, or sorry, not security, around the business itself, right? And show how your security posture has improved and helped improve those business areas, right? Hey, we went back, we gave an example of downtime and the impact to the organization. So you say, you know what, we have determined that if we have X amount of downtime, it's this Y impact for finances. With our security posture, we've reduced that downtime or the risk of that downtime by this quantifiable amount, and that investment has gotten you that ROI. So that's one way of doing it.
And I just want to acknowledge some of the great 10% tips that have come in, and please feel free to feed off of these and speak up if this is your tip. This one is currently voted up the most, but please get in your tips. And again, I always like to point out that while we had dozens of bad ideas, we only have 7 good ideas. So,
so 7 CISOs in the crowd, is that what you're saying? No.
Our CISOs come up with plenty of bad ideas too,
I know.
as well. Connect all cybersecurity programs with the revenue generator of the company. Each time you speak about cyber, use it as a sentence with, quote, and it helps me to grow the revenue of the company by XYZ. So, and this speaks to something that my other co-host, Steve Zalewski, who's the former CISO of Levi's, used to always say, whatever it is, how does this help me sell jeans? To what degree, I'm going to go to you, Guy, to what degree can we, and we're going to do a whole show about this, like security as an actual revenue generator, to what degree can you attach an actual control or something you're doing to improving business functions?
To a degree where, controls will be attached into scenarios. So firewall, I don't care about the firewall, but the firewall is a mean to help you to protect against a certain scenario. If you understand the scenarios that you're concerned about that will happen, can be downtime, can be data exfiltration, can be a certain threat actor that intend to go after you, then you can tie control to that scenario and to the business impact.
Mm-hmm. Good point. And what about you? Have you actually been able to do this? Well, actually, what was I? I just asked you this, Peter, just moments ago. Let me go to this. We have not touched upon this at all. I want to hit this, and we're going to just answer maybe this question, one more, and then we're going to go to our wrap up. And I'm going to throw this one to you, Guy, again. An organization gathers a lot of intelligence, and you gather it from many sources as well. So how do you leverage the information, and what are you doing to weaponize it? So there is the controls, but we have not mixed in the threat intelligence into this equation. How are we associating what we have with current threats?
That's a great question. So today, most organizations consume threat intel as call it a standoff information. So we know that there's a group called APT29. We know these are the tools that they have, but how do I connect that to my risk, my business? What we do is we weaponize it by literally using the same TTPs, the same IOCs in an attack, and run and execute this attack on top of your controls.
You're doing this within your safe breach program, is what you're saying?
Yeah. So you can literally choose an APT29, execute, and see what happens. Am I susceptible or not? And where do I prevent or detect, etc. And you can choose any threat actor to that extent. So the idea is really to bring it to live and not just theoretical.
Well, to present day too. So correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't know this about safe breach in general, is you are constantly keeping up to date with all the threat intelligence yourself, I'm assuming multiple sources, and you're feeding that into your program so you can essentially simulate the attacks. Am I gathering that correctly?
So we're doing a few things. One, we have a large research team that does exactly that. And we have an SLA of 24 hours. Every CERT alert, every FBI alert, every outbreak in the out there in the wild. We have 24 hours SLA to bring that content into the platform. But we also have APIs that connects directly to your threat intel feed. If you're using Unit 42, if you're using Anomaly, any other platform, will consume the IOCs and TTPs on the fly. The system will actually generate attacks from them, so you don't need to have any research team. Fully automated.
How much have you done, Peter, yourself to simulate attacks on something that's essentially more present day?
Oh yeah, well, like I said, I've used SafeBreach in the past, and that's what we've used it for. But just to double click on what Guy was saying, it's going a step beyond your base level intelligence. A lot of intelligence products you see out there for some of these platforms are, here's an indicator for endpoint, here's an indicator for network. SafeBreach actually ties it all together. When you click one of those APTs, they actually go from, hey, intake, as in like coming in, lateral movement, IOCs there, what it looks like on the endpoint. So literally like an end-to-end sequence of events that threat actor would take. So, which is huge, because normally you just try to go after a point component. Hey, I'm just going to try the lateral movement piece. I can block it there. You actually see the full scope and whether or not you're vulnerable throughout the pipeline. It's pretty impressive.
By the way, everyone, click on the link at the bottom of the screen, because we're going to change that in just a second. Thank you very much, Peter. We have 4 minutes left, and so I want to wrap everything up. Click on the link at the bottom to make sure you register for the April 29th, because that is going to change in just a second. I want to wrap this show up right now. Again, I want an enormous thanks to SafeBreach for sponsoring this event, and this was a great discussion. I love this. Great engagement by everybody. The chat room was lighting up. I greatly appreciate everyone who attended as well. Again, click on the link at the bottom of the screen, because it's going to change now. In fact, go ahead and change it now to our meetup. You can do that. But starting in 90 minutes, we are going to be having our cybersecurity headlines week in review. That's with Brett Conlon, who's the CISO of American Century Investments. And that happens actually over on LinkedIn. So you just go to the CISO Series page on LinkedIn at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. You will see that. All right. Stick around for our meetup. The link at the bottom. Just go ahead and click it now. If you have never been to our meetup portion before, go. It's a ton of fun. It's a chance to have one-on-one time. You'll be a bunch of floating heads, and you can drift in and out of conversations. It's a ton of fun. Tell your friends to join us. We do it almost every Friday. Our next one is April 29th, because I'm going on vacation. There's also Easter. So every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, starting again April 29th. Would you like to sponsor Super Cyber Friday? Guess what? Just email me at david@cisoseries.com. All right, let's wrap this whole sucker up. We have exactly 3 minutes left. I will start with you, Guy. Any plea you want to make for SafeBreach, a summary on today's topic, your advice for those going forward? If you want just one thing for everyone to stick with, what would that be?
It's not about security for security. It's about how do you secure the business. So understand the business, build the KPIs, and test all the time. Don't assume anything.
All right. And I'm assuming go to safebreach.com. You're hiring, yes? Everyone is.
Always
hiring. I got a comment, because we're with our podcast, we're producing a number of weeks out. And he said, you're asking people that, if the CISOs, if they're hiring, but, people are filling the requisition 3 to 4 weeks. I go, every one of our CISOs is just constantly hiring. They've never stopped. They're in a constant hiring mode. Peter, you're nodding your head here as well. Are you hiring, and what is the one thing you want everyone else to go away with as well?
Yeah, we are hiring. We have a couple of positions coming up, very soon, actually being putting out in the next week or so. And the one thing I think I would take away from this is you have to look beyond vulnerabilities. You have to look beyond your base level, indicators. Don't think about how many vulnerabilities I have in my environment. Think about how susceptible are you? How susceptible are you to that threat actor actually exploiting those vulnerabilities? That's what you need to be focusing on. If you're just bouncing off your vulnerability checklist and trying to get, 10,000, low and medium vulnerabilities down, you're out of luck, man. You're not doing it right.
Yeah. Good. And actually, we talked about it on previous shows, and we found out from our previous guests that a good 60 to 70% of your vulnerabilities you can just flat out ignore.
Absolutely. But you have to show why you can ignore them.
Exactly. All right, just quickly, how do people, first of all, both of you are going to be able to join us for the meetup immediately after this? Yes? Yes? Okay. So, by the way, if you're looking to work with either of them or learn more about them, Both guys are fantastic. I've known them for both a while. Please join us for the meetup immediately afterwards. And that means you have to click that link at the very bottom right there. Both of them are very visible on LinkedIn as well. Peter Liebert and Guy Bejarano over at SafeBreach. Peter is a Life Omic as well. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the producers, Aaron and Andrew in the background as well. Everyone in the chat room, click the link at the bottom. Aaron, Andrew, whoever's hitting the button, take us out.